else, or do you have a small staff at all? Or?
No. So up until now, it's been just me. Don Blumenthal recently just came on. He's probably going to be on the board of directors. And then there's another person that is interested in coming on. So we're working together.
Would you send us a picture of the bed, and then I can post it on our site so people can visualize this?
I will send you a video.
Ooh. God, she's good.
Rashelle Monet Smith, you are going to be on Shark Tank. It is just a pleasure to have you here.
I'm so grateful for your time and having me on the show.
Thank you for being here. You're listening to Cowork Radio here on KZSB 1290 AM. By the way, you can listen to a replay of this show and any other shows that we've done as well at coworkradio.com. You can also listen on iHeartRadio, iTunes, and YouTube too. We're going to be right back. 5-time Grammy winner Allen Sides of Ocean Way Audio is up next.
The Central Coast may seem laid back, but when it's time to work, no one works harder, including the bank that's grown up here. Montecito Bank and Trust offers customized lending and banking for all businesses, big and small. It's harder than offering one-size-fits-all solutions, but it's the right thing to do. And here, getting things right is a way of life. Montecito Bank and Trust. Behind every great community is a great bank. Montecito.bank. Member FDIC.
Koto Group. We are a boutique property management firm located here in the Central Coast. We are small enough to prioritize your business and large enough to match the right tenants with your property. Koto Group. We work for you 24/7 with around-the-clock marketing and emergency service. At Koto Group, we use leading-edge software, making us efficient and cost-effective. Koto Group. Property management for the 21st century.
The signature of the incredible jewelry selection at Bryant & Sons is a blend of ideal materials, conceived to the perfect shape, and then precisely finished. And throughout this process, the highest possible quality must be ensured, so that in the end, a work of art is created that stands for unmatched elegance. At Bryant & Sons, all our jewelry must meet these standards. We source the finest designs from around the world and create our own as well, so that you will have an unparalleled selection of art created from platinum, gold, and precious gemstones. When you choose jewelry that is not only worn with pleasure, but also admired for its exceptional qualities, it's from Bryant & Sons. If you're considering acquiring a distinguished piece of jewelry as a gift or for yourself, visit us at Bryant & Sons and let us show you how remarkable materials and exquisite design combine to create a timeless keepsake. Bryant & Sons, California's premier jeweler, 812 State Street in downtown Santa Barbara and the Upper Village in Montecito.
Welcome back to Cowork Radio here on KZSB 1290 AM. I'm Catherine Raymock.
And I'm Jane Walker Wood.
And we're a show all about the modern entrepreneur. Each week we have 2 company founders on, and we are thrilled to have Allen Sides in studio with us. He is a 5-time Grammy winner, owner, and chief designer for Ocean Way Audio, but has done major work, installations for film and music companies. The list is huge, but Disney, Warner Brothers, and he designed and built the most successful music studio complex in the world. He's worked with the likes of Michael Jackson, Josh Groban, Green Day, Frank Sinatra, Steve Wonder. That list goes on as well, either as an engineer or a producer. And so we're just thrilled to have you in. We want to talk about Ocean Way Audio and your speakers as well. But I want to say, first of all, good afternoon, and it's so nice to have somebody in. I don't have to show you how to use the microphone, do I?
I thought he might prepare things for us.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I do appreciate it.
I heard you once, actually. Maybe it was Alan that said it himself. Alan Parsons says,
yes.
Oh, yeah, sort of the American equivalent of Alan Parsons. And maybe it wasn't Alan saying that, but so I've heard. And the two of you are friends also.
Alan's a good friend and a good client, yes.
How did you, why the interest in music? Did that happen early for you? Were you a musician yourself? Or?
Well, as a kid, I was sort of the hi-fi kid. I did hi-fi installations when I was 12 and 13. And I started doing installations in Hollywood, and I met a number of producers and such. And one of the producers was the the president of Warner Brothers Records, and he produced all of Sinatra's albums. So the first session I got invited down to, and I was 13, was Sinatra recording The Summer One with Nelson Riddle.
Unbelievable.
When you were 13 years old.
Did you even understand what you were watching and hearing? Or
Oh, no, it was a high point for me.
It was, yeah.
You know, and then I went to Mancini sessions and all sorts of sessions. And then when I was working at a hi-fi store when I was 15, a friend of mine was a violinist in the Fox Orchestra. So he would take me, he would sneak me in the back lot at Fox, and I'd watch Alfred Newman conduct the orchestra for various sessions for films and such.
Unbelievable. So when you talk about installing hi-fi, what was it back then? Because that you were...
Well, it was a little more esoteric. I mean, people had more elaborate systems, and there was multiple components and speaker systems, and so that was one of my things that I did rather well.
Yes.
I designed and built speaker systems from the age of 12 or 13. I was doing custom systems.
How did you learn how to do that? I mean, there's not like a kit, like an easy bake oven.
You know, it's you know, I guess just
That's how I learned how to cook.
Well, I think conceptually, if you have an idea, or you know what something can be, or you think it can be, and you set that goal, you say, well, I'm just going to experiment until I get what I want. And so I did a tremendous amount of finessing. So then I started buying speakers out of old theaters, you know, when I was very young. And I started experimenting and creating versions of these and different amplifier configurations and crossovers. And I think I made some fairly impressive sounding systems. So then I started selling those to various clients. And so what I did was, early on, I needed impressive sounding material to play on my speakers. And there weren't that many great sounding records, so I started making my own recordings.
Of course you did. You know, where some people would have in the music singing industry perfect pitch, is there such a thing as that for audiophiles? I mean, are you listening differently than you think most people would? And did that start at an early age where you could really hear the difference in audio?
Oh, I think so. I can define that because I was a musician as well. And so my sense of, even if I'm playing my acoustic guitar, how I make that instrument sound, how I control the notes. I'm also a bass player. So very much I think in those terms, and how I make my instrument sound good is the way I think of how to make speakers sound good. I know what I want out of them. I know how to finesse things, and so I did a tremendous amount of experimentation.
So that was innate, basically, a quality, in a way.
I think it is to some degree.
Do you think you were just born with the motivation gene?
Or
did your parents push you?
Well, I say to my kids, come on, let's get rolling here. I was so into it from a young age. And my mother was very
your
involved.
Parents didn't have to say, oh, Alan, stop playing with the iPad, go do something.
Well, there was a point my dad, I was in college and business and such, and I was running a studio I had my first studio in 11th grade. So 11th and 12th grade, I ran a commercial studio. And then I continued to operate through college. I'd work all night in the studio and go to school during the day. But my father finally said to me, son, it's time to get a real job.
No. Was he joking? Or he serious?
He conceptually didn't understand what I could possibly be doing.
What did your dad do?
Well, he worked for Kaiser, when Kaiser had all the building materials and such, and he worked with Kaiser. And he was, my dad was...
So he had a more traditional type job, and he had this very creative... Eccentric, is it okay to say so?
He did, and when I think I took him to the Grammys when I got my first Grammy nomination, and then he said, well, there might be something to this.
Finally convinced him.
What did you get your first Grammy for?
I think it was a album with, it was Duke Ellington Orchestra and Diane Carroll.
Wow.
You have worked with some phenomenal people over the years. And how many of them are really actively involved in the editing and producing process? Or do some just come in and say, does anybody stand out as one that really wants to be involved in it?
It's all over the map. Some people are incredibly detail-oriented, like Barbra Streisand. There's not a line that goes by that she doesn't control. It just depends on, and other people, that's great, call me when it's done.
Yeah. Favorite artist to work with over the years?
I did a lot of work with Neil Diamond, and I met my wife through Neil Diamond, actually.
I didn't know that. How?
Well, we had done a show together in New York. It was the Centennial event, and I was there, and I think after the event, no, actually, that was the second time. The first time was we were doing a Martin Luther King birthday special at Radio City Music Hall, and I was doing the network show, and Neil was singing "Coming to America" with the band and a full choir and orchestra and such. So after we did the show, Neil said, well, we went to Coney Island to get fried clams at Nathan's, and then we went to Neil's mom's apartment in Brooklyn. And I was sitting on the floor of his apartment, and I ran into my wife, who was a production coordinator on the project.
Wow.
You've had a few. I have to pinch myself moments. I take it over the.
Yeah. Now you ended up building the largest studio complex in the world. We know you started at age 12.
Yeah, no, my first studio, as I say, was probably I was in 11th grade running a commercial studio.
So to get that large, you also must have a business sense.
Well, I do appreciate a deal.
How did that come about? Build that complex.
Well, I started in a little garage. Actually, I started my first studio was in the basement of Pacific Ocean Park, the amusement park that used to be there, in Venice, and that was a pretty big building I had. And then I moved to a studio on a street called Ocean Way in Santa Monica Canyon, and I did about 50 albums out of the garage. And then finally the neighbors said, this is ridiculous.
And were these well-known people you were bringing to the garage?
Oh, no, I was doing, major.
The neighbors were not there getting autographs?
I think it was just that we were leaving at 2 and 3 in the morning.
Oh.
It was in a residential community, and they said, well, I think we've maybe had enough of...
Had enough of Barbara.
of a studio next door.
Yeah, can she go away now? So
we moved to Hollywood.
You moved to Hollywood.
And we took over a studio that was called United. It was a very famous recording studios that was very popular. In 1958, it became one of the most important studios in L.A. I eventually took over one room and then took over the whole complex and bought it all. It just, over a period of time, we were so successful that we kept buying more stuff.
Until
more rooms.
1 billion albums were created in your studios.
Yeah, albums recorded through sold in excess of 1 billion copies.
And as somebody that is a producer, engineer, you have your own sort of signature on the sound that is coming out. Can you tell when you're listening to other recordings who might have produced or engineered an artist?
Yes.
You can.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think it's a signature to certain people. Mm-hmm. There was an engineer named Phil Ramone who did all Burt Bacharach's stuff, and Burt became one of my best clients. And he did all the Diane Warwick stuff. And that was just all done live to 2-track before there was multi-track. And it sounds amazing.
No. I want to talk to you about the technology also and the changing technology. But you're in an interesting situation because artists have a tendency to be on when they're live and in concert.
Right.
And I guess more themselves when they're in the studio. So you see a whole different side of them. Are they generally, I guess as your reputation grew, they would be, but open for input? And do you like working with the artists and in that way, or are you just there to record?
As I say, it runs the gamut. Some people are absolutely delightful and fun and really take input. Other people have no interest in hearing input. And so you try to...
So you're also a politician.
Well, you have to move them in the right direction without them thinking they're being moved in that direction.
Yeah.
You provide opportunities. Well, there's a couple ways to do this. Then you present them something and let them pick.
And now you have a company where you design and create speakers and do large installations. Is the studio part gone? Did you sell that?
No, we originally we had the Ocean Way Studios in Hollywood, and then we had Record One Studios in Sherman Oaks, and then we had Ocean Way Studios in Nashville, and then we had Ocean Way Studios in St. Bart's at Eden Rock. And so we had 18 rooms at the peak. But the music business sort of changed, as we all know. Intellectual properties per profit, talking about sell for the winner. Now, we did a lot of the major acts who continued to make records because they needed to support their tours. And so even if the records weren't the primary sales item, they need to make them. Like Eric Clapton was a great client of ours. So we did, from Riding with the King and B.B. King, we did all of his records. And so he'll come in and spend money. But obviously the days when we were doing all the Michael Jackson records, the budgets were unlimited because the revenues were unlimited.
Aren't records coming back, though?
Well, yes, but when you look at what the music business was in the 80s and 90s...
It's got a long way to come back.
Well, I'd love to talk to you about that, because when you started in the business, you were doing probably reel-to-reel and slicing, cutting and slicing, and then the technology has changed so much, and some of it great, but I actually have talked to a lot of musicians that prefer the old sound of an actual album, a record, and you do see it coming back a little bit. So have you enjoyed learning about the new technology, and what do you think of the new sound?
Well, I agree that analog is preferable to my state. I mean, recording in the original analog mode, to me, was more natural and it sounded better. The early digital was pretty awful sounding, but things have gotten much, much better. So we're recording, when I do orchestras and such for film scores, I'm recording at 192 kilohertz at 24-bit, which is like ultra-high resolution. And even though the CD is at 44.1 at 16 bits, having a high resolution source you end up with a better finished product.
It certainly is easier to edit.
How have you stayed up on all this technology? Do
Yeah.
you take classes, or you just learn as you go?
Well, actually, I used to teach a course at UCLA on recording arts and such for 15 years. I did a seminar for that.